Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I got you guys set up with a semi-budget Orcust, Ogdoadic Orcust deck profile. This deck can do some awesome stuff, and the Ogdoadic cards really push the ceiling of this deck. Like, I am having a lot of fun with this. I'll be doing the basic budget, and then I'll be showing you guys some more expensive cards that you can play instead, should you wish to do so. But for now, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments, what should we call you guys? Because every big YouTube channel's got their name for whatever they call themselves. You know, Team Sam's got the Sniff Gang, Varfa's got the Brainworms. I don't know what MBT calls his stuff, but it's enough rambling. Let's head into the deck profile, a very in-depth breakdown. So we're playing 3 Girsu, the Orcust Mech Knight. This is your #1 starter. Or I guess not the #1 starter, but this is your normal summon typically. On summon, you send a machine or a World Legacy or an Orcust from the deck to the graveyard. And then if there are 2 or more monsters in its column, on the resolution of that effect, it becomes a tuner till the end of the turn. That's because this supports both the Mech Knight and the Orcust archetype. But it also has another effect that if you have no other monsters on field, you can special summon a World Legacy token to your field and your opponent's field. Really nice at dumping really nice at dumping your play starters. You have multiple starters and extenders in this deck. Speaking of which, let's move on to Orcust Nightmare. This is one of your big starters. You banish this from your graveyard to target a monster. You then send a Dark Machine from your deck to the graveyard. That the monster you targeted gains attack equal to the monster's level times 100. But after you do that, you're locked into Dark Machines. And the target you're typically going to send is World Legacy World Wand, because this has an effect. So after you banish your Nightmare to send your World Wand, you'll banish the World Wand to resummon the Orcust Nightmare, and that gets you set up to summon a Galatea, which will then get you a Dingirsu, and you'll get to move on from there. For the rest of the Orcust and Dark Machine package, we're on 2 Symbol Skeleton. You will go through 2. And thanks to the snake cards in this deck, you get the option of actually putting the banished Orcust and Dark Machines from the banished pile back into your graveyard, which is a phenomenal way to constantly loop resources. The deck has an insane grind game. However, in true Orcust fashion, the deck can brick very hard. The last monster in the Orcust lineup is the Gizmek Orochi. This, set into an established graveyard and banished pile, you genuinely don't care what's left in your main deck. This is just being summoned to go for game. Then we're on 2 copies of Orchestrated Return. It's pitch 1, draw 2 for Orcust. That's pretty much all it is. Send a Orcust or World Legacy monster from hand or field to grave to draw 2. So if you get ashed on your Girsu or something, you can return to draw 2 and potentially get what you wanted. We're obviously on the 1 Orcust Babel. This turns all of your Orcust monsters. So pretty much all of these, except for the Gizmek, of course. It turns Nightmare, Girsu, and Symbol Skeleton in the graveyard into quick effects. Girsu doesn't have a graveyard effect. But your Orcust Link monsters and your Orcust monsters in the graveyard are now quick effects, meaning they can respond to your opponent's cards. And the last in the Orcust lineup is Orcust Crescendo. This card is a spell trap or monster effect, spell trap card or monster effect negate, but it also banishes the card. Then it has an amazing effect that you can banish it on the next turn to add this guy to your hand or any banished Dark Machine to your hand, and then however you get locked into Dark Machines. But the fact that you can flip this, negate something, and then start a follow-up on the very next turn, that's something you don't get to see a lot of decks do. Well, I mean, I guess you do see it in most decks, but the fact that this is a negate and a follow-up is phenomenal. Moving on to the Orcust cards, we're on 3 Nunu. This is your main Ogdoadic. It summons itself from the graveyard and locks you into snakes, and then when it leaves the field, it becomes banished. That shares the same trait as Nauya, the Ogdoadic Remnant. So these two, this card on summon searches you the Ogdoadic spells or traps. Nunu just summons itself. So you can summon Nunu. If you can get Nauya on the board, you can take these 2 into a rank 4, and you can make King of the Feral Imps and whatnot. But this is one of the combos you do. I will show you combos at the end, but These two are very key, and they themselves have the ability. Nunu can pitch itself from the hand to send a dark reptile from the deck, and Nalia can pitch itself from the hand to send a light reptile. Which is important for the next two monsters you're about to see, Alarit and Curse. So the reason these are so important to the strategy is if you draw these are bricks. You really don't want to see this, or the Ogdoadic Overlord. These are cards you don't really want to see in your hand unless you know for a fact you have a way to get them out of your hand. But Alarit on summon targets, you can return 2 banished monsters, including a reptile, to the graveyard. And then Curse on summon brings out a level 4 or lower Ogdoadic monsters, typically one of these two. But usually you're going to summon Nunu off of its effect, tribute it for Curse, and then Curse is going to bring this, so you can search one of the spell or trap cards. Nunu will be banished, then you'll tribute the Nalia for the Alarit, return these two to the graveyard, so when these go away, you can resolve one of the more broken spell cards in the deck. He's one of the main ways you set up with all of these in your graveyard to kill on the next turn, because he's 3100 and has a quick effect to send everything to the graveyard that wasn't special summoned from the graveyard. So as part of your natural combo during your opponent's turn, you summon back a Dingirsu to your side of the field. So if you need to use his effect to send everything else, Girsu or your Dingirsu will stay on the field. So on the next turn you can just start punching your opponent. And then of course we're on Zoha. Zoha sucks, but if you draw any of these three, when you activate one of the next cards in the lineup, or if you want to Nunu send a dark, but you have Alarit in hand, you can send Zoha. Zoha can discard the Alarit to add itself back to the hand. So it's a good way to get these two out of the hand with these two. The spell you're going to be searching off of Nalia is 2 copies of Ogdoadic Water Lily. Here, let me go ahead and clean this up. But Ogdoadic Water Lily says send a reptile from deck to grave, and then if you have 5 or more with different names, you can just summon one of them. So typically what's going to happen is during when the turn comes back to you, you're going to have these 4 in the graveyard. You'll activate Water Lily, you'll send this guy, and because you had 4 before he got sent, you can now summon him for free from the graveyard as just a way to start punching your opponent. And it's nice to have 2, because then later on you can send the other copies to continuously revive him from the graveyard. And then the last of the snake spells is 3 copies of Snake Rain. This is part of your combo. One of the most powerful combos this deck can open is this. Snake Rain plus Orcust Nightmare. This is full combo, because you get your Nightmare in the graveyard with the 4 reptiles I was telling you. You get Curse, Nalia, Alarit, and Nunu. You get all of them into the graveyard, and you just get to start running, plus you still have 3 to 4 more cards in your hand, depending on if you're going first or second. Anyways, so yeah, that's all it does. It's not once per turn too, so if you have 2 Snake Rains and 2 targets, you can go Snake Rain, pitch one. If they ash it, you can just do it again. Broken card. Reptiles have some of the most broken stuff in the game. They're just not good enough on their own. And the last 10 cards of the deck I'm going to be showing you guys are just like power cards and extenders. So Foolish Burial, 3 copies of Super Polymerization, 3 copies of Twin Twisters, and then to keep the deck a little bit more budget rather than playing the Dragoon package, I chose Evenly for those people that want to be more competitive, considering this card did just get reprinted. It's definitely a little bit cheaper. You can sub this out for Ash Blossom, Ghost Ogre, Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence, any power card that's going to stop your opponent's play and allow you to continue or kill them quicker on the next turn. I chose Evenly Match because you have 6 back row removal in the main deck now, so you have multiple ways of clearing out stuff that's going to cause you a threat. So if your opponent makes you go second, you have 6 cards and a 40, I believe this is 40 cards exact. Having these 6 means you're more than likely to draw one of these. But by having these 10 power cards, you have I think it's like an 80% chance to see any one of these cards. And these 2 are the best because they get rid of a card in your hand, which could be Curse, it could be Alarit, it could be Ogdo Abyss. It could be the 3 cards you really just don't want to see in your hand that need to operate in grave. you have the Twin Twisters and the Super Poly to get rid of them. I don't own copies of Forbidden Droplet, but if you had the money to do so, you could cut Twin Twisters for Forbidden Droplet and then just move the Twin Twisters to the side deck. Evenly matched, if you do have the funds to do it, you'll take them out for the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon package, and then I'll show you what you'll take out in the extra deck when we get there. But yeah, so evenly matched, you can take out for the Red Eyes package if you have it. If you can't afford it, I recommend evenly match as a way to clear back row, but you could throw in like a Harpy's Feather Duster and 2 Cosmic Cyclone. You could throw in 3 Ash, you could throw in an Effect Veiler, an Impermanent. This is 3 slots specifically for you guys to mess around with. Super Poly is a phenomenal board breaking card. Like, when I read this card, it still surprises me that this card is at 3. I hope it doesn't get hit, because then this deck would not be as powerful as it could be. But Super Poly, get rid of 2 threats. So if your opponent ends on a Dragoon, you can Super Poly their Dragoon package away and pretend like nothing ever happened. And then Foolish just sends pretty much any monster you need to the graveyard. You can send a Nunu, you can send an Alarit, a Curse, you can send a World Legacy World Wand, a Symbol Skeleton, you could get a Gizmek, Girsu. Those are all phenomenal cards to get rid of off of this card. Yes. So we'll move towards the extra deck now. This extra deck is actually kind of cool, because what helps make this deck a little bit more budget is instead of playing the Dragoon package, you play a specific package. But let's go over the Orcust cards first. You're on 2 copies of Dingirsu, the Orcust of the Evening Star. You can only summon Girsu. You can only summon him once per turn. On summon, he can target a banished machine and equip it to him as material, or I guess attach it to him as material, or as his other effect is on summon, he can just send a card your opponent controls to the graveyard. Really good rank 8. If all else fails, your Nunu and your Alarit, or not your Nunu and your Alarit, where are they? Your Curse and your Alarit happen to both be level 8, so you can just take these 2 and make Dingirsu by himself, just like that. Typically you don't want to, that's usually just a last case, you have nothing else to do. 2 copies of Galatea, not Galatea. This linked card cannot be destroyed by battle, and what the difference between linked and co-linked is right here. Galatea is linked. She points to the Dingirsu, so while this is here, she cannot be destroyed by battle. But she has an effect that targets your banished machines, puts them back in the deck, and then sets you your Orca spell or traps, which in this deck could be your Crescendo, your Babel, or your Orchestrated Returns. So you have 4 targets that you can constantly go, so if you do get stuck in a grind game, Babel also has a second effect I should have mentioned, that if this card is in your graveyard except the turn it was sent, you can send a card from your hand to put this back in your hand. So if they out your Babel, as long as it's not banished, you can put it back on the next turn to continuously respond to your opponent's card effects. And then I'm on 1 copy of Long Girsu, just because this linked card cannot be destroyed by card effects. It lets you target 2 banished machine monsters, shuffle them into the deck, and then send a linked monster your opponent controls to the graveyard. Now, it doesn't say link to this card. So let's say I'm playing against a deck, let's say I'm playing against Scrap Orcust, right? And my opponent has his monster here. Just bear with me, let's say this is like that, right? I guess I should probably put it up on the camera. Let's say it's something like this. Let's say this is, they just Super Poly'd you. Well, you can go into Long Girsu, trigger the effect of your Long Girsu. You can return, let's say, both Dingirsus if they get banished. They go back into the extra deck, and then you can send this to the graveyard because it's they have an arrow that points to it. Plus, he's just 2,500 as a link 3, and it's any linked monster as well. So he points to this zone, and back this way. So he can get rid of these 2. He can get rid of these 2 zones, or these 2 zones on your opponent's field, typically. So these 4 zones are the more unsafe ones when Long Girsu comes out to play. So that is actually the Orcust extra deck. Let's move on to the more generic link monsters, and I'll show you the surprise tech card at the end. So we're on IP Masquerena with the Nightmare Unicorn. This is another way in which you can. This is the more budget replacement for the Dragoon package, because instead of making with this end board, you end on IP to make this during your opponent's turn. So that's another reason why this might not be the absolute best one, because this is very easy to see what's going on, and it's very easy for your opponent to stop. So this is more of a, if you're playing budget, this is a fantastic way. I know Masquerade is expensive. Give it a couple more months. She's getting reprinted again in the El Dorado, the new Maximum Gold set. So she'll have a new artwork and she'll be reprinted again, making her so much cheaper for everyone to get a hold of. Then you're on one Link Karibo and one Boral Sword. A lot of people like to flex their access code talkers. That works in Scrap Orcust. It does not work here. You just simply do not have enough attributes. If you noticed, every single Link monster on this board is a Dark. And that's all the Link monsters you play in this deck. There is not a single non-Dark Link monster here for access code to really gain any benefits, except for maybe a pop 1 with Long Gearsu and 5300 attack. When it's very easy, when you could just go into Boral Sword Dragon and punch twice. Steal half the attack of something, attack twice, and you don't have to worry about not having enough targets or not being able to do anything. Because you can go IP into Boral Sword on your own, during your opponent's turn. Make this, it can't be destroyed by card effects, and it's massive. And you have so many ways of protecting with your Super Polys, your Twin Twisters and whatnot. It's going to be very difficult for your opponent to be rid of the Boral Sword. Link Karibo's there for the Long Gearsu combo, or not the Long Gearsu, the Gearsu combo, where you can normals Gearsu, make the 2 tokens, turn 1 token into Link Karibo, and then turn those 2 tokens into your Galatea. That's the whole reason why that's in there. We'll move on to the Xyz monsters, which we do play a fair copy, or I guess we'll do the Super Poly targets, actually. These are the 3 Super Poly targets: Mud Dragon of the Swamp, Predaplant Dragostapelia, and Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. These are the 3 most popular. These are the 3 that come up the most. The only one I kind of want to consider maybe trying to play is the zombie one, but this deck is a little tight as it is. I don't think I can cut anything really, except maybe the Long Gearsu, but it comes up enough to the point to where I cannot afford to cut it at the moment. So, this one gets the attack of 1 special summon monster and can copy its effects. This one is a negate and reduces the monster's level to 0 or 1. And then this one can change its attribute to make it so your opponent cannot target. Your opponent cannot target monsters or target this card or monsters on the field with the same attribute at it with card effects. So if you set up this card and say your Dragoon and your Gearsu, you can activate this effect, make it dark, and now your opponent can't target any of them with card effects. So it makes it more difficult to get rid of. It's just protection typically, and it's level 4, so if you need to, you can use it to go into King of the Feral Imps. These last 2 are the tech cards I'm going to show you guys that helps make the deck good, but still budget. King of the Feral Imps is good if you need to get like a Nunu or a Nalia to your hand to send to get a curse to the graveyard if you can't resolve Snake Rain. And you can put 2 level 4s on the board, because at the very least, Nunu in graveyard plus the normal summon of a Gearsu or a Nalia can make a king. Or shoot, even Mud Dragon of the Swamp, normal summon Nunu, make King of the Feral Imps, continue your plays from there. It's a nice card that you do go into enough that it needs to be here to prevent your opponent from just outright stopping you from playing. Okay, this is what replaces the Dragoon package. Rika Queen Strenna and Sacred Tree Beast Hyperiton. So normally in this end board, you end on Verte Anaconda, Dread-Eyes Dark Dragoon, Symbol Skeleton, maybe a back row, but you have a full Orcust graveyard to start playing out of on the next turn. With this version, typically what you're going to do is, after you do one of your main combos, you make the Queen Strenna and you tribute it up to summon your Alarit back. Well, this card, if it's tributed while it had Xyz material, you can summon a level 5 or higher plant Xyz monster from your extra deck and then attach this to it as material. So it gives you a monster negate. Unfortunately, the combo still very much loses to Nibiru, but at the very least, you can get a negate on board. And it has another effect that says during your turn, when you activate a card or effect as a quick effect, you can target 1 card on the field, or target 1 card on the, let me read this. Yeah, you can target a card on the of the same type in your graveyard and attach it to it as material. So if I make this and then activate a spell, I can chain my tree beast to the spell and then equip another spell to it. So now it has a spell and a monster negate. Same thing with my trap cards. So that's the combo you set up here. If you can afford, you can cut the Rika Queen for the Dragoon and the Hyperton for the Anaconda. I have an Anaconda, it's just in another deck, and I don't really want to get it out right now. So this is the deck, this is what helps put the deck down by $150. So, that is actually the main and the extra deck. I'll show you guys the combo you can do with this deck. So, some of the combos you can do, they are a little more specific. This one is a 3-card combo that sets you up on a pretty nice board. It involves your Girsu, your Symbols, or your Nightmare, and your Snake Rain. So what you're going to do is start by activating your Snake Rain, and you're going to pitch your Orcust Nightmare to the graveyard. Then, you're going to send Nalia, Nunu. I shuffled the deck. I shouldn't have done that. Curse and Alarit. And keep in mind, the targets you send will change based on your hand, but let's say you didn't open any of these two. You still have the Girsu in your hand. So what you'll do here is you'll have all 4 of these in the graveyard. You'll activate the effect of your Nunu. You'll special summon it from the graveyard. Now you're locked into reptiles, special summoning reptiles specifically. But that's fine because you'll activate the effect of your Curse and Grave. You'll tribute it to special summon. If your opponent has a monster in their graveyard, they can now special summon it. Curse and Alarit both have that effect. Curse special summons, and Alarit lets you add 1 back to your opponent's hand. Curse will special summon your Nalia, and Nalia will trigger, and you'll add yourself your Ogdoadic Water Lily. Then, instead of immediately tributing, you'll normal summon Girsu, Exceed summon, not into King of the Pharaoh Imps, but you're going to make your Rika Queen Strenna. Then you'll tribute for Alarit. So Alarit hits the board, and then the effect of Rika Queen triggers. So you get to summon this, and then attach this as material. Unfortunately, I believe this is summon number 6, so if your opponent Nibiru's here, you still get this out, but you'll just have this. Luckily, you do have a full graveyard. Then you'll just do Orcust combo. You'll go Nightmare, targeting any of these. You can target your Sacred Tree Beast if you really wanted to. Orcust, you'll go ahead and send a copy of the World Wand, because if your opponent wants to Nibiru, now you have a negate for it. You'll banish your World Wand to summon your Nightmare. You'll link 2, it really doesn't matter. You are unfortunately locked into dark monsters, but luckily that's pretty much all we're going to summon. You'll make your Galatea, the Orcust Automaton, and you will activate Galatea's effect. You'll put back your World Wand, and you'll go ahead and set your Orcust Babel. Then go ahead and activate your Orcust Babel, because now your Orcust Nightmare in the graveyard for your opponent's turn is now a quick effect. You still have Water Lily in hand as well. Then you're going to overlay Galatea for Girsu, the Orcust Mech Knight. If you're going second, you can send a card. But if you're going first, you're just doing this to load it into the graveyard. Then you'll link these 2 together, and this is the more budget version. You'll make your IP Masquerena. Remember, you have 2 other cards in your hand, so let's just do this. It's kind of difficult to see due to the coloration of the sleeves, but bear with me. So you have 2 other cards in hand plus the Water Lily, so you'll end on a board very simple like this. Then on your opponent's turn, you can banish your Nightmare to target your Hyperton. You can now send a copy of your Symbol Skeleton. This card goes up to 2,900 until the end of your turn. Let's just shuffle. You can now Symbol Skeleton, summon back your Dingirsu from the graveyard, and send a card. Then you can trigger your IP Masquerena and link these 2 together. You'll make your Nightmare Unicorn, and you'll spin another card. So that's 3 interruptions in your opponent's turn, plus whatever else you might have in your hand. If you had a Twin Twister, you could set the Twin Twister, and then You have all of the follow-up on the next turn. Your Nightmare can't be targeted. You'll draw for turn. At this point, you are 1 reptile short. But, actually, yeah, you can just Water Lily. You can Water Lily, send Abyss. And then you do have 4. Unfortunately, you can't summon the Abyss, I don't believe, because you did not have 4 in your graveyard beforehand. But for the sake of the combo, let's say you did. You summon back the big guy, and now you have almost enough to push for game based on what's in your hand. So in this instance, I had a Nunu. So if I had a Nunu plus a Water Lily, I could Nunu send a Zoha, Water Lily, and then summon this. So that's just a very standard combo. If you're playing the more expensive variant, with like the droplets and the Dragoon, the combo will be kind of similar. The only difference is how the end board goes. So let's put everything back. We're just going to use this as a copy of Verte Anaconda. Anaconda. Cannot say that word. So you'll do the same combo you did to start the game off. You'll Snake Rain with a copy of Orcust Nightmare. This time you won't need Girsu, but you'll just Snake Rain. You'll send Naya, Nunu, Curse, and Alarit. And this is all with just the cards in your graveyard. You can completely play out of your graveyard with this deck, which is the best part. What you'll do is you'll go special Nunu, tribute the Nunu for Curse. Remember to tell your opponent they can add a card from their graveyard if they have one. Curse will then special Naya, and Naya will add you the Water Lily. Keep in mind, you also have 2 other cards in hand. You'll tribute the Naya, summon the Alarit, and trigger Alarit's effect to return 2 reptiles to your graveyard. Then you'll go Resolve Nightmare. Whoops. Jumping the gun. You'll send World Wand. You will World Wand back the Nightmare, and you'll take these 2. You'll still make the Galatea, because now Galatea will trigger, put your World Wand back. So you can use it again for the grind game or for the follow-up if you need to kill your opponent. You'll Babble, you'll set the Babble, and then remember to activate the Orcust Babble. Then what you'll do is you'll go into Dingirsu. You'll link the Dingirsu and the Galatea into your Verte Anaconda, and you will activate its effect. You will pay your 2,000. You'll go ahead and send your Red Eyes package, and you'll summon your Dragoon. And then you pass. It's much more of a simple combo if you have the Dragoon engine. Because on the next turn, you'll go Nightmare, target your Verte, your Burning Anaconda, Burning Anaconda. You'll send from your deck to the graveyard. You won't send a Nightmare, you'll send a Symbol Skeleton. And now you can go Symbol Skeleton, effect to special. You can summon your Dingirsu as an interruption. You have a negate with Dragoon, and then on the follow-up turn, you can Water Lily and summon this guy. And then there's your game. That's enough to kill your opponent on the next turn. That's kind of all I have for you guys, actually. Very simple combo video. Very fun version of the deck. The budget one, still a very fun version of the deck to play. I know the Red Eyes one is more competitive, as Dragoon is just a big boy, and he's very difficult to get rid of as soon as he hits the board. But for those of you that can't afford, another cool thing you can do if you can't afford the Girsus, because they are $30 right now, is you can cut 3 Girsu, the Orcust Mech Knights. Let's find them. and you can play Armageddon Knight, Dark Grepher, and Reinforcement of the Army, because they're both Dark Warriors. It's not nearly as effective as the Girsu, but if you do the Snake combo instead of normaling Girsu and attempting to use its effect, you can just normal the Armageddon Knight and send any dark monster from the deck to the graveyard. So, that's another cool way to play it, because now you have Rhoda to search 2 targets, Grepher can now discard your Nightmares to summon, but Girsu is one of the more consistent ways to set up good boards a lot. So, yeah, that's actually going to be it for the budget Orcust deck with the... And then, of course, I showed you guys the big one. Either one of those two. And yeah, that's going to do it for the video. Have a nice day, guys.